fair to say in the UK that we have a fairly good support system in place, provided under the banner of the World Class Performer Programme, whereby athletes at elite level are supported, and they do have use of national level facilities.
Performance analysis begins by considering for every particular sport what are the major factors which influence performance, both in terms of the physiology, the biomechanics and the psychology. And here at Loughborough we have individuals who specialise in each of these three areas. So if we were looking at runners, for example, and doing a performance analysis, we would use the treadmill as well as their track times. But on the treadmill in the laboratory, we'd measure how much oxygen they can use, and we'd be able to calibrate them against the track times and know what percentage of their maximum capacity they're able to use and what is their potential for a greater use of their capacity. We may also use lactate and heart rates to measure their metabolic responses to set running speeds. So we have this wide range of techniques which we can use to monitor the progress of the athlete. And all this is done in conjunction with the coach and usually the sports medicine support team.
We can improve an athlete's performance by either looking at his actual technique and trying to gain insight into how he might improve his performance, or secondly we can use simulation modelling where we can experiment with the athlete's technique and see what happens if we change the athlete's technique and see how this affects performance. In the hurdles we can collect the three-dimensional kinematic data and the kinetic information from the force plate and try and understand the technique the athlete has actually used. Colleagues of mine went to the last Olympics in Sydney to record high bar performances by gymnasts from around the world. From this they're able to look at the techniques used when swinging around the high bar and compare the results of those previously gained from a simulation model.
There's a system being developed, the technical term is isokinetic dynamometry. It's been around for some years but mainly been used for clinical practice, so rehabilitation, also diagnosing sports injuries. But recent advances have allowed it to become a much more sophisticated training aid. In other words, you can identify weaknesses in particular muscle groups and you can target those with a computerized control system. It's a very intelligent use of sensors and feedback with software manipulation, so that we're able to isolate either areas that need specific focus or specific ranges of movement which are unique to a particular sport.
Now where technology is advancing is that equipment is being developed where you can actually measure the oxygen consumption of the individual out in the field, out on the tennis courts, out on the rowing area and on the playing fields. And as technology advances, so we'll be able to make the laboratory measurements out where it's all happening in the arena.
Nowadays you're almost a sort of superstar if you can run quickly, and so there's a much greater selection of athletes or people who are having access to training facilities and just having the luxury of being able to compete and make a living out of that.
I believe that the greater commitment of athletes coupled with better facilities plus sports medicine, sports science support is one of the reasons why we see records being broken more frequently than they were in the past. The athlete of today has to get everything right in order to achieve, the ultimate performance. I should say, with all the technology and with all the support, at the end of the day, it comes down to the athlete and whether the athlete can cope with the training, can cope with the competition, and so it comes down at the end of the day to the human being, and the difference between those who win and those who lose may be in the psychology of the athlete.